Hello and welcome to the A Book a Day channel. The book that we are going to explain to you is Economics, the User's Guide, written by Ha-Joon Chang, a professor of economics at the University of Cambridge, UK, and one of the leading scholars in development economics today. The author's name is Ha-Joon Chang. He is a professor of economics at Cambridge University in the United Kingdom, and he is also one of the heavyweight scholars in the field of development economics nowadays. I've already explained to you Ha-Joon Chang, masterpiece Kicking Away the Ladder, and this book Economics, the User's Guide is his popularization book of economics for the general public. This book, Economics, the User's Guide, is his popularized book on economics for the general public. Since it is a popular book, it means that the content of the book is easy to understand. On the contrary, this book goes beyond the theoretical framework of ordinary textbooks and stands in a higher dimension to introduce to us what economics is and how we should properly use economics as a tool. After reading this book, I have a strong feeling that the real experts never make any pretense. In the opening chapter, Ha-Joon Chang makes a self-deprecating statement about economics. Is economics hard? Actually, 95% of economics is common sense. The reason why economics seems difficult is that economists deliberately use dazzling mathematical formulas and difficult and obscure terminology to make it intimidating for ordinary people. Especially in recent decades, economists have tried hard to convince people that economics, like physics and chemistry, is a hard science, meaning that there is only one right answer under given conditions. And since economists have already given the one right answer, the general public doesn't need to think about abstract questions about money, trade, taxes, employment, etc., because we don't understand them anyway. But Ha-Joon Chang disagrees. He wrote this book to complete the demystification of economics. First of all, economics can never be a hard science like physics and chemistry. First, economics can never be a hard science like physics and chemistry. This is because those physical particles in nature do not have free will, but human beings do. So there can't be a single correct answer to the question about human beings. Secondly, economics is not difficult, we can understand it with common sense, and everyone is capable of thinking about economics. Most importantly, economics is a field that concerns everyone, and it cannot be left to economists alone to think and make decisions. Ha-Joon Chang calls for every responsible citizen to learn some economics, which is the meaning of the title of the book Economics, the User's Guide. This is what the title Economics, the User's Guide means. It should also be noted that although this is an introductory book on economics, people like me who have been studying economics for many years find it extremely rewarding to read. Next, I'd like to report to you the 3 areas in which this book was most enlightening to me. First, what exactly is the study of economics? Second, why do we need to understand the different schools of economics? Third, why is economics not value neutral? Let's take a look at the first question. What exactly does economics study? You might think this is simple, right? Just as physics studies matter and law studies legal matters, economics, of course, studies the economy. It's not that simple. Take, for instance, the recent best-selling economics book Freakonomics. The author, Stephen Levitt, is a bona fide economist, having graduated from Harvard and MIT, and became a professor of economics at the University of Chicago at a young age. However, Levitt says he's not interested in traditional economic issues like stock and property markets, savings and investment, inflation and unemployment, exchange rates and trade, etc. Indeed, when we open Freakonomics, we find it discusses a bunch of odd issues like cheating, abortion, drug trafficking, the Ku Klux Klan, terrorists, etc., without discussing serious economic issues. So why is the book entitled Freakonomics? You might say this is just a bestseller, a publishing gimmick to make money, and not to be taken seriously. But that's not true. Many mainstream economists agree with Levitt's view, believing that economics is not a discipline that studies the economy. To be more precise, they consider economics not a discipline that studies a specific topic, but a set of theoretical methods that can be used to study any subject, just as the subtitle of Freakonomics says, exploring the hidden side of everything. This understanding of economics began to emerge in academia in the 1970s. At that time, Gary Becker, a representative of the Chicago School and Nobel laureate in economics, published an academic work called The Economic Approach to Human Behavior. The book says the economic approach is a comprehensive approach to human behavior. That is, all aspects of our lives, from major decisions like what job to find, whether to start a business, who to marry, whether to have a second child, to minor ones like what to order for lunch delivery, can be decided using economic methods. Becker even proposed a miraculous marriage formula to calculate when people should marry or divorce. From that time on, economic research has greatly exceeded traditional economic issues, attempting to have a say in all aspects of human life. People jokingly call this phenomenon economic imperialism. You must be curious, what theoretical method does economics use that's so magical it can explain and see through everything? It's just one word: scarcity. Economists claim that economics is a discipline about scarcity. They like to say, there is no such thing as a free lunch. Note that this doesn't just mean you have to pay for your meal at a restaurant to avoid a free meal, but that when we do anything, considering the scarcity of resources, we are doing so at the expense of giving up other things. Those things we give up are what economists call opportunity cost. Economics is the study of how to make choices among different opportunities. If the essence of human life is seen as making constant choices, then of course economics can explain everything. The question is this understanding of economics correct? Ha-Joon Chang disagrees. He uses a famous quote by Charlie Munger to mock his economic colleagues. To a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. In Ha-Joon Chang's view, economics simply does not have the capability to explain all the world's problems with a set of theoretical tools. The task of economists is not to save the world or to study the trivial matters of personal choice, but to honestly clarify important economic issues. Economists are busy meddling in too many things, and as a result, they haven't even managed their own backyard. On some of the most important economic issues, such as the financial crisis, economists have been repeatedly proven wrong. Nobel laureate in economics Robert Lucas once claimed in 2003, the central problem of depression prevention has been solved. However, a few years later, the 2007 financial crisis occurred. In November 2008, during the worst of the crisis, Queen Elizabeth II visited the London School of Economics and asked the economists present a question that puzzled her. With such a big crisis, why didn't any of you predict it beforehand? The Queen's question made the economists present quite embarrassed. It is said that the Royal Society specially convened a round table to gather a group of top economists to discuss how to reply to the Queen. Half a year later, they finally wrote a letter to Her Majesty explaining the matter. In essence, they had only assessed the risk of individual financial products and overlooked the overall systemic risk. One original sentence from the letter was the failure to foresee the timing, extent and severity of the crisis was a collective failure of many wise individuals. Ha-Joon Chang believes that the fundamental problem lies in the fact that mainstream economists have too singular a set of theoretical tools for understanding problems. As mentioned earlier, economics is about scarcity, which is actually just one school of thought within economics, that is, the neoclassical school's proposition. Indeed, from the 1960s to the present, the neoclassical school has been the mainstream school of economics, or what is called orthodox economics. The Western economic textbooks studied in universities are mainly theories of the neoclassical school. But you should know that economics is far more than just the neoclassical school's theoretical tools. In his book, Ha-Joon Chang introduces us to 9 major schools of economics, each with its own research focus and blind spots, strengths and weaknesses. Faced with an economic problem, we can try to analyze it from the perspective of each school to find the best explanation, instead of clinging to one method and fantasizing about solving all problems. Chang believes that this is the right path for economic research. Next, let's examine these economic schools together to see what heritages and differences lie between each school and what different perspectives they can offer us in thinking about economic issues. Since there is a neoclassical school, there naturally exists an old classical school. Representative figures of the classical school include Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Say, and Malthus. Adam Smith believed that economics is the study of the nature and causes of the wealth of nations, where production is the core of all economic activity. In The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith meticulously examined a small pin factory and how it increased its productivity from 20 pins per person per day to 4,800 pins through the division of labor. However, David Ricardo, born half a century after Adam Smith, did not quite agree with Smith's views. Ricardo believed that the core of economic study is not production but distribution. He was interested in how national income is distributed among the 3 classes, namely landlords, capitalists, and laborers, and what kind of distribution could increase overall social welfare. Ricardo also proposed the labor theory of value, meaning that the value of a commodity is determined by the labor time required to produce it. Half a century after Ricardo's death, the classical school had 2 inheritors. One is the neoclassical school, and the other is the Marxist school. Surprisingly, these 2 seemingly completely different economic schools, which are actually of the same origin, rose at the same time. Each inherits a part of the classical school's theories. As mentioned earlier, the classical school emphasized production and distribution, believed that the economy is constituted by classes rather than individuals, and proposed the labor theory of value. All these points were inherited and absorbed by the Marxist school. It can even be said that compared to the neoclassical school, the Marxist school is more faithful to the classical school's tenets. Building on the classical foundation, the Marxist school further proposed that economics is the study of the laws of motion of capitalism. By the way, what exactly is a capitalist economy? This term is known to everyone, but we may not understand its meaning. Simply put, a capitalist economy refers to production for profit rather than for self-consumption or fulfilling social obligations. The Marxist school believes that due to the inherent flaws in private property rights, capitalism is ultimately doomed to collapse. Later on, the Marxist school also had an important inheritor, the Schumpeterian school. The first 4 chapters of Schumpeter's representative work Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy are all about Marx. Some scholars joke that Schumpeter is just Marx with the adjectives changed. Like Marx, Schumpeter emphasized that technological development is the driving force of capitalism. Schumpeter proposed that entrepreneurs gain a temporary monopoly position through innovation and enjoy excess profits, which is the driving force for economic development. And like Marx, Schumpeter also believed that capitalism would decay, because as enterprises grow larger, innovative entrepreneurs will give way to bureaucratic professional managers and capitalism will lose its vitality. Okay, let's look at another inheritor of the classical school, the neoclassical school. The neoclassical school regards itself as the direct disciple of the classical school because they have inherited two important concepts of the classical school, the invisible hand and the theory of market equilibrium. Guided by the invisible hand, everyone rationally pursues their own interests, which can increase the overall welfare of society. And in the long run, the market can always achieve automatic equilibrium without government intervention. Because of such beliefs, most economists of the neoclassical school advocate laissez-faire economic policies. The smaller the government, the better. Apart from the neoclassical school, there is another school that advocates laissez-faire and small government even more radically, which is the Austrian school, represented by the famous Hayek. However, it should be noted that although their academic propositions are the same, their reasons are completely opposite. The neoclassical school believes that everyone has enough rationality to know what the optimal choice is, so intervention is unnecessary, whereas the Austrian school believes that human rationality is unreliable, and no one has enough rationality to know what the optimal choice is, so economic intervention should not be undertaken. What's more interesting is the behavioral economics school that has been popular in recent years. This school has proven through numerous experiments the Austrian school's view of human rationality, that is, the human cognitive system, has some obvious flaws and many times it cannot judge what the optimal choice is. However, the policy recommendations of the behavioral economics school are completely opposite to those of the Austrian school. Precisely because people are not rational enough, the government needs to use various overt and covert methods to intervene in people's behavior. This is the nudge policy advocated by behavioral economists like Richard Thaler, which cleverly utilizes the flaws in the human decision-making system to guide and promote people to make better choices. You see, the neoclassical school and the Austrian school have diametrically opposed views on human rationality, but surprisingly, they give the same policy recommendations. The Austrian school and the behavioral economics school agree on their views on human rationality, but their policy recommendations are completely opposite. Isn't it magical? If you carefully examine these schools of thought, you will find it very interesting. For example, although the neoclassical school inherited two important concepts of the classical school, namely the invisible hand and the theory of market equilibrium, many people have not noticed that there are several important differences between the neoclassical school and the classical school. First, the classical school believes that society is composed of classes such as landlords, capitalists, and workers, who have both economic and moral attributes. But the neoclassical school believes that there are no classes. Society is composed of atomized individuals. And there is no such thing as morality. Each person is absolutely rational and absolutely selfish, like a robot constantly calculating how to maximize personal interests. This changes the classical school's fundamental assumption about society. Second, the classical school believes in the labor theory of value, that the value of commodities is determined by labor time. But the neoclassical school believes that the value of commodities is mainly determined by consumer utility. Consumer utility refers to the degree of satisfaction consumers get from consuming goods, which is the consumer's subjective preference and evaluation of goods. Third, the classical school believes that economics should mainly study production and distribution, but the neoclassical school has a different opinion. The neoclassical school does not care how products are produced, believing that just by putting together capital, labor, and other factors of production, various goods and services are automatically generated. The intermediate production process is like a black box, and economists do not need to know exactly what happens inside. Things like the organizational structure of the factory, management mechanisms, technological research and development, system improvements, etc., are left to management scientists and engineers to figure out. Similarly, the neoclassical school is not concerned with how products are distributed, whether the distribution is reasonable or not, but regards the distribution of wealth and power as a given fact, without questioning. So, what does the neoclassical school care about? They are concerned with the fields of exchange and consumption. In the view of the neoclassical school, the entire economic system is a network of exchanges, where independent, rational, and selfish individuals maximize personal interests through free trade. Obviously, compared to the classical school, the neoclassical school has significantly narrowed the research scope of economics. But a more serious problem is that in modern society, this imagination of the economic system is wrong. Nobel laureate in economics Herbert Simon once estimated that only 20% of economic activity within the United States is organized by the invisible hand, that is, the market mechanism. The other 80% of economic activity is within enterprises and governments, organized by the visible hand, that is, planning, organizing, coordinating, controlling, and other management means. In modern society, the most important decision makers in economic activities are enterprises, not individuals. 10% of the world's total output is produced by the 200 largest companies. In international trade of manufactured goods, inter-firm trade of multinational companies accounts for 30% to 50%. For example, Toyota's engine factory in Thailand sells its products to Toyota's assembly plant in Pakistan. Although this is also trade, the price is not determined by the market mechanism but follows the direct instructions of Toyota's headquarters. Represented by Ronald Coase, the new institutional school believes that the essence of large enterprises is actually to internalize a large number of market transactions, replacing the market's invisible hand with the management's visible hand, thereby greatly saving transaction costs and improving the efficiency of resource allocation. The process of making management decisions by enterprises involves complex games among various stakeholders, such as shareholders, managers, and unions, which is completely different from the simple decision-making of individual interest maximization. Therefore, the neoclassical school's imagination of the entire economic system as a number of individuals exchanging through market mechanisms is outdated. When Coase won the Nobel Prize in 1991, he criticized the neoclassical theory in his acceptance speech, saying it is only suitable for analyzing the solitary individuals who trade nuts for strawberries at the edge of the forest. In modern society, if the most important economic decision-makers are enterprises, then the most important economic participants are governments, without a doubt. In many countries, the government is the largest employer, with 15% to 25% of people working for the government. Moreover, the proportion of civil servants in developed countries is far higher than in developing countries. The United States is considered a small government among developed countries, but it also has more than 20 million civil servants, accounting for 6% of the total population. In most countries, the government is not only the largest employer but also the largest spender. On average, government spending in developed countries accounts for 45% of GDP. Because the role of the government in economic activities is so important, 3 significant economic schools, namely the Keynesian school, the institutional school, and the developmentalist tradition, all highly emphasize the role of the government. To make a simple distinction, the Keynesian school emphasizes the use of macroeconomic tools such as fiscal and monetary policies to regulate the economy. The institutional school emphasizes adjusting the economic structure through institutional design, such as financial regulatory systems, social security systems, public management systems, etc. The New Deal in the United States in the 1930s, usually considered as Keynesian policy, was actually mainly promoted by members of the institutional school. As for the developmentalist tradition, it focuses on studying how backward economies can catch up with developed economies, where the role of the government is even more crucial. The developmentalist tradition includes early mercantilism, infant industry protectionism, and current development economics. Ha-Joon Chang, the author of this book, is a heavyweight scholar in the field of development economics. Okay, let's quickly review the main economic schools we just mentioned: classical school, neoclassical school, Marxist school, developmentalist tradition, Austrian school, Schumpeterian school, Keynesian school, behavioral school, institutional school, and new institutional school. Now we know that when thinking about economic problems, we don't just have neoclassical theory as a hammer, we have a whole toolbox. These tools can help us understand and solve economic problems from different angles. Hearing this, you might wonder, why are there so many schools of thought in economics, and why do they often clash with each other? It's common to see two economists awarded the Nobel Prize in economics at the same time, yet their views are diametrically opposed. For instance, in 2013, American economists Eugene Fama and Robert Shiller were jointly awarded the Nobel Prize. Eugene Fama proposed the well-known financial theory of the efficient market hypothesis, while Robert Shiller, representing behavioral finance, directly refuted this hypothesis. Such occurrences are nearly impossible in the natural sciences. It is said that someone once advised British Prime Minister Churchill never to seek the opinion of economists, because each would have a different opinion, especially not to ask Keynes, as he would have 3 different opinions himself. Why does economics suffer from this kind of schizophrenia? This brings us to another important insight from Ha-Joon Chang's book. One key reason for the infighting among different economic theories is that they are based on differing ethical and political values. In the era of classical economics, the subject was originally called political economy, which meant that economics included value judgments and political propositions. Scholars of the classical school did not consider themselves economists, much less scientists, but rather social philosophers. Later, the neoclassical school changed political economy to economics to make their analysis appear as pure science, devoid of moral and value judgments. The question is this possible? In fact, economics can never be value neutral as the neoclassical school claims. Sometimes, disputes over economic theories are actually political struggles, such as the battle between Keynesians and the Austrian school, which is essentially a political debate over how much power the government should have. Other times, the political intent behind economic assertions is more covert and requires careful consideration. For example, the neoclassical school has an important theory called the Pareto criterion, which states that an improvement in society is only considered such when some people are better off without anyone else being worse off. Conversely, no matter how many people benefit, if even one person is harmed, it is not considered a societal improvement. On the surface, the Pareto criterion seems to protect everyone's interests from harm, but in reality, it covertly maintains the status quo of vested interest groups. In practice, any real reform cannot avoid impacting the interests of these groups, or it wouldn't be a true reform. If we strictly adhere to the Pareto criterion, society can only maintain the status quo, period. Ha-Joon Chang suggests that when we hear an economic proposition, we should be wary and ask who benefits. Sometimes, seemingly objective and neutral statistics carry value judgments and political intentions because they are built upon theories. With complex real-world situations, what a statistic emphasizes or overlooks depends on the theory behind it. Take GDP, for instance. This economic statistic, which seems completely objective and neutral, was politically charged from its inception, playing a backstage role in America's victory in World War II and the Cold War. If you're interested, you can follow the A Book a Day channel, where we will soon discuss another book titled Gross Domestic Problem: The Politics Behind the World's Most Powerful Number. In summary, we must remember that statistical data in economics is never the equivalent of objective fact and should not be accepted without scrutiny. Let's briefly recap. Ha-Joon Chang believes that mainstream economists claim they can explain everything in the world with the same set of economic theories, which is a delusion. The correct way to engage with economics is to return to the actual field of economics, to integrate theories and methods from various schools, and to understand and solve problems from different perspectives. Economics can never become a pure science, nor can it achieve value neutrality. Behind the various economic schools are different value orientations and political propositions. Ha-Joon Chang says that, in the end, economics is a political argument involving how interests are distributed, who benefits, and who is harmed. Economics is too important for us to leave to others to contemplate. Even if you are not an economist, as long as you have some knowledge of important economic theories and understand the political and moral assumptions behind them, you are fully capable of making wise judgments about economic affairs. Lastly, I strongly suggest you find the original book to read, as I'm sure it will be enlightening. Congratulations, you've finished another book.